Are we ready to begin?
I believe so.
Excellent. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Monroe County Board of Commissioners. It is Wednesday, February 23rd. And I will note for the record that 2 commissioners are present, Commissioner Githens and myself. And Ms. Jones is taking a well-deserved break. So we'll start with our public statement. We, the Monroe County Board of Commissioners, renew our commitment to welcome and to protect the rights of all people, regardless of age, race, color, creed, disability, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, marital status, economic status, and national origin. And we affirm the right of every person to live peacefully and without fear. And we will fight and resist at every step discrimination and harmful policies, whatever their source. We also stand in support of our county's public school systems, both RBB and MCCSC. And with that, we will move on to our department updates. First up, we have Ms. Caudle, the administrator of our health department. Thank you once again for being with us. Good morning.
Good morning. Want to start today with kind of where we are, and the 2-score metric this week we will fall into orange and just miss being yellow by a very tiny margin. Now the advisory map will stay red because remember there's that 2-week requirement. And I have to say our current situation makes this measure less useful because with Omicron, we've seen these extremely sharp surges followed by very steep declines. And in the past, we saw lots of roller coaster as downward trends came. So that 2-week wait, if you will, was to make sure that we were truly trending downward. So it's a little less useful to us now, but nonetheless, something to look at. This week, our cases per 100,000 did drop below 200. They should come in right about 176. The positivity rate fell to just about 10%, I think 10.1, just missing the 9.99% that would have put us in yellow in that 2-metric score. So we did just barely miss being in that 2-metric score of yellow. So overall trends for hospitalizations, symptomatic testing, positives in schools and shelters, all of those things continue to align with the reduction in numbers. And even the water sampling that is occurring is showing those downward trends. So still good news that we're seeing. Our rolling daily average of cases has now less than 40. And in January, we had topped 300. It has been since early December since we saw numbers on a rolling daily average of what they are now. So we're very pleased with where we're going. Certainly our cases are still elevated at this point. They are not currently low, but we are making great headway in our trends. Last week, the Indiana Department of Health announced changes for schools related to reporting and quarantine. These changes will also be reflected in the upcoming dashboard numbers for March. This will be the last week of required reporting for all schools. Students who test positive, though, still must isolate, and if returning early, must wear masks. Now, so far, there's no change to federal requirements for public transportation. So school buses, students and staff on school buses still are currently required to wear masks. So with all of that and all of these changes to recommendations from the state health department, from upcoming anticipated changes to our local regulation, we've had several questions, and I want to just kind of hit on some answers to a few of those. Schools may continue to set requirements for masks, in-school reporting, and for testing. Some schools will be moving to mask optional quickly, and some will ease into it. Either is okay. They will make a decision based on what's best for their school. Reporting is still required for schools doing testing through the Indiana Department of Health CLIA waiver. So if a school is doing rapid tests through the Indiana Department of Health CLIA waiver, those cases still have to be reported. Isolation for those who are infected is still a must, a minimum of 5 days with masks on days 6 through 10 if returning early, and no fever or symptom need to be lingering in order to return early. Businesses may require masks if they wish to. Some may even require vaccination or some combination of masks, vaccination, or testing, and that is within their right to do. IU's announcement about plans to move to mask optional does align with new guidance for higher institutions of higher education and our local regulations that are set to change. It is a time for some adjustments. We are moving into a transitional period. Removing a mask requirement does not mean that they are a thing of the past, that they are not needed or not required at all. They do have value, and there will be people who need to wear a mask. And there will be times when we all should, or virtually all of us, should be wearing a mask, right? So we need to pay attention to what's going on in the community, what our transmission rates are, what current guidance is, as it will continue to change. As we are entering in this time of transition, instead of increasing anger and hateful words, let's be mindful that this transition is good and it has promise. Let's support one another in the journey as we adapt to a new phase that will see fewer restrictions. You know, if you think back to March of 2020, when our first case was detected in Indiana, we knew so little. And it was through strategies like reporting of cases and interviews and contact tracing that we learned about the virus and how it works. It was useful, and it was the right public health response to take at that time. Today, we are in a very different place, and the level of response is no longer optimal. So that's why we're seeing these changes to contact tracing and interviews for people. The virus, however, is not going away. And we do have tools now like vaccines and treatment therapies that we did not have 2 years ago. We have really come a long way. As we move through this transitional phase, there will be more changes. That is the one thing that has always stayed true, is change. Testing will be easier and more routine, and we will need fewer specialized clinics for testing and vaccinations. These needs will be merged into more routine practices. The state dashboard will start to transition into a new phase as well, and you'll see some changes that will start as early as this week, and they will continue over the coming months. The data that's not been used for a while will be removed, and school data will shift as reporting will not be required. A new youth portion will replace the school section that we're used to seeing. Case data, vaccinations, reinfections, and deaths will all be on that page. Testing does remain available. The Gravity site has changed its hours. It is now open Monday through Friday. Thursdays, they are open 10 to 6, and the other days they are open 8 to 4. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, this is their last week of operation. They are open today and Friday from 8 to 4. They are open on Thursday from 4 to 8, and then Saturday 8 to noon, and they will close after that. Home tests are still available, and if you haven't ordered yours yet, you can do that by going to covidtest.gov. Vaccine is still available. We encourage you, if you have not yet gotten your vaccine, to do that. Get your booster, stay up to date. Our public health clinic remains open for vaccines. Pharmacies, providers, mobile clinics throughout Indiana still have vaccine available. So do try to stay up to date. And with that, I will just end on a way to kind of get your children back on track. If they have missed some school vaccines, there's an opportunity going on today from 3 to 7 at Ivy Tech. Vaccines for schools and sports, as well as COVID-19, will be available. There will be some freebies, some school supplies, some food, some door prizes available while they last. Registration is encouraged, but it is not required. So here's some details, and then I'll put them in the chat if maybe we can share them if there's a way to do that. So visit mdwise.org, back on track, and you can get information by visiting that, mdwise.org, back on track, or you can call 800-356-1204. And to register, you can go to patients.vaxcare/registration. And then there's an enrollment number, IN 97832. And we have posted this information on our Facebook page. I know the commissioners have shared that as well. And I will put that in the chat feature. But registration's preferred, but it is not required. So if you miss all that and you can't access it, Ivy Tech today, 3 to 7. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Cottle. Comments, questions, Commissioner Giffens?
Well, a comment and two questions. I really like the term mask optional. I have to say that I hope that we continue to push that this is a way to, we need to make sure that there's no friction, because the people who choose to mask and those who don't choose to mask. So we ought to just let people make their own decisions about this at this point going forward after March the 4th. So I got 2 questions yesterday in a different meeting. Will the kind of COVID mapping continue that we've seen, that metric map through the state after March 4th? Because it doesn't seem like they'll be doing some of the same testing. That was one question.
Certainly. So the maps will change over time. As I said, the dashboard is definitely going to change over the next few months. The testing and vaccine maps will remain, definitely, even though testing sites, extra sites will decrease. So state funded sites, special sites will decrease. We still have those pharmacies and clinics who are on those sites and will be available. Mobile clinics will still be going out, maybe not just doing COVID, but maybe all of our school vaccines and those kinds of things. So that will continue probably the longest. There will be changes to the other metrics maps as reporting changes and those kinds of things. So yeah, stay tuned. The next few months, I think probably every month you will see some changes to the dashboard.
And then the other question was about second boosters and if those are going to be available and what the timeline is. I think you said something last week about maybe it might be in the fall. Do you have any update?
Well, there is talk about second boosters. There's not been any particular decision made on that yet. There is some talk that maybe it would come more with flu season and flu vaccines. So right now it's a stay tuned. We don't have details on that at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's great. This is good news. I'm glad to see those numbers finally coming down. This is really, cause to celebrate. And, we are all tired of masks. We're all tired of being isolated. And so I think every single member of this community is eager to see some changes. But yes, we have to be respectful of those who continue to wear masks. It's so important that people protect themselves and others, especially if they've had a positive test result at some point, and we have to respect that. I'm certainly much more comfortable in public places wearing my mask right now, because there's still virus out there. It hasn't gone away. So we are all very eager. And, I think I said this last week, we don't know how many lives have been saved as a result of making sure that we were masking and social distancing, but everything changes, and that's the beauty of science. You live, you learn, you grow, you learn new data, and you make changes. And of course, we all feel like the changes can't come soon enough, but the virus is still here. So we're just responding appropriately. So really appreciate all of your hard work. And again, to your staff, the board, Dr. Sharp, everyone in the community who's helped out, and really, really do appreciate that when folks do their best to comply, because there are folks in our community we need to protect still. So we have to keep those folks in mind as we go through our day-to-day. Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, let's see if there are other department heads who have an update for us. Raise your hand if you are department head. I don't see any. Okay, all right. And with that, we will move on to the public comment section of our agenda. This is public comment for items that are not on our agenda. Each commenter, just as with agenda items, will have a total of 3 minutes to share their ideas and thoughts and opinions. And at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you will hear a tone. Thank you so much. And when you hear that tone, you have 30 seconds to wrap up your thoughts. We will ask you to verify your name and to note whether or not you are a Monroe County resident. And so with that, does anybody have any public comment they wish to make? All right, I do not see any. So we will move on to our next agenda item.
I move approval of the minutes from February 16th, 2022.
I'm going to go ahead and second that. Any edits, corrections?
I didn't see any.
Great, thank you so much. Mr. Copper, will you please call the roll on approval of minutes February 16th, 2022?
I think we lost Mr. Copper.
They just unmuted. Angie and Jeff are in the Nat U Hill room. We're working through. And I do not hear them. There we go. So Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on approval of the minutes for February 16th, 2022? Okay, well, why don't we just go ahead and do ours here. Commissioner Giffens?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Excellent. All right, next item is item 6, please.
Move approval of the claims docket, accounts payable February 23rd, 2022, and payroll February 25th, 2022.
I will second that. Mr. Miller, good morning. Tell us all about it.
Good morning, commissioners. The total for claims was $984,000 $855.82. There were 3 items that made up just shy of 70% that I'll focus on, starting with $310,316.80 for food and beverage tax distribution for the month of January, $270,541.17 was for Anthem Inc. for February claims, fees, and premiums. And finally, for AP claims, $105,233 was for Celebrite USA for the HTCU or High Tech Crimes Unit for a prosecutor's office. $103,358.75 of that amount was for the software, and the remaining $1,874.25 was for remote premium training. Now for payroll, the total was $1,799,415.54, $1,262,425.44, or approximately 70.2% were for the direct payroll costs of the main, supplemental, and incentives payrolls. And finally, $536,990.10, or the remaining 29.8% were for the indirect payroll costs, primarily for taxes and retirement.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Miller. Comments, questions, Commissioner Githens?
No, it looked all straightforward to me this week.
And let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Raise your hand on the Zoom screen, please. Okay, seeing none, we'll come back for a roll call vote on approval of the claims docket, accounts payable February 23rd, 2022, and payroll February 25th, 2022. Commissioner Githens?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries 2-0. Thank you so much. I will note that we have received a report from the treasurer from January of 2022, and we will move on to new business, please.
Move approval of ratification of Michael Chambly agreement for 302 South Walnut Street in the amount of $3,750 and fund name to be determined.
We have a motion. I'm sorry, I will second that. So we have a motion and a second. We have Mr. Crone here to tell us all about this.
Good morning, commissioners. I hope everybody can hear me okay. This is for the election operations down at 302 South Walnut. There'll be some interior construction that need to be made, including a room addition and some modifications to an existing room and bathroom that are there. So in order to go through the permitting process and everything, it's required that we have some building plans drawn up for that. So Michael Chambly is agreed to take care of that for us.
Excellent. And this item was heard at our work session last week. Comments, questions, Commissioner Githens?
No, I'm just thankful that Mr. Crone has been on top of this.
Yes, and we have a number of items relating to this building to hear this morning. So yes, thanks in advance for your hard work on this. Let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Just raise your hand on the Zoom screen. I do not see any. So we're going to move to a roll call vote on ratification of the Michael Chambly agreement for 302 South Walnut Street. Commissioner Githens?
Yes.
And I also vote yes, so the motion carries 2-0. Next item, please.
I move approval of ratification of BTEC LLC access control agreement with 302 South Walnut Street in an amount of $5,979.30, again with the fund to be determined.
I will second that, and with the motion in a second, Mr. Crone, tell us all about this one.
Yes, once again, speaking of election operations at 302 South Walnut, we're going to install swipe access readers as we have on our other buildings that require an ID badge for entry. We'll be doing that one swipe reader on the main door, one on the rear door, and then for the ballot room, there will be a keypad swipe combo for 2-point authentication for going into the ballot room. And this will be provided by BTEC, who does our other door reader security installations.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Comments, questions? Commissioner Githens?
No, again, we looked at this last week, so it's good to get it.
Great. All right, let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Raise your hand on the Zoom screen. Seeing none, we'll come back for a roll call vote on the ratification of the BTEC LLC Access Control Agreement for 302 South Walnut. Commissioner Githens?
Yes,
And I also vote yes, so that motion carries 2-0. Next item, please.
move approval of Elite Electrical Agreement for 302 South Walnut in an amount of $7,500.
I will second that. Again, the fund is to be determined. Mr. Crone, tell us all about this one.
Yes, when Napa vacated the location, all exterior lighting was removed from the building. This agreement with Elite Electric is to install 8 exterior lights around the perimeter of the building, a photo cell that will power all those lights so that we don't use energy when we don't have to. And they will also be installing 2 electrical drops over the entrance and exit door on the front of the building to power ADA electric door openers that will be installed later.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Comments, questions? Commissioner Githens?
No, I really appreciate the fact that we're getting this ready for early voting.
Absolutely. It's good that you pointed that out because that's what 302 South Walnut is. We're just so used to it now. And I don't have any questions either. Let's see if there's any public comment on this. It looks like we do have a comment or question from B Square. Good morning.
Good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
We sure can. Can you verify your name, please?
This is Dave Askins with the B Square Bulletin. So I understand that there's no legal requirement that questions get answered from the public, but I wanted to just ask a question that I would ask if this were in person and I was able to just grab somebody quickly after the meeting or during the meeting. You know, the first date for early voting is coming up pretty quick, April 5th. And I can't imagine that it would be okay if all of this construction work were done on the evening of April 4th. So there's some date earlier than that that we're shooting for. And I'm just wondering if we could get an idea of what the sort of practically speaking last possible time that this work needs to be completed in order to make the facility ready for in-person early voting. That's the question. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Askins, who's also a Monroe County resident. Mr. Crone, would you like to address that question?
Yes, absolutely. We definitely recognize that time is of the essence with this project, but the work that is required in order to use that as an early voting site, we're working our best to have that work completed by the end of March, well ahead of the April 5th voting, which would allow elections to get in there and set up the way they'd like to. So we're looking, like I said, for the last week of March to complete work. No work will be going on during election periods.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you for that, Mr. Crone. Is there anyone else who wishes to offer public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll come back for a roll call vote. Mr. Cockrell has joined us again. If you would please call the roll on the Elite Electrical Agreement for 302 South Walnut Street.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes,
Motion is approved 2-0.
Great. Thank you so much. Next item, please.
move approval of contract with Van Horn Tent and Accessories for 302 South Walnut Street in the amount of $4,964 in a fund to be determined.
Great. I will second that. Mr. Crone, please.
Okay, once again, we're speaking of election operations for all those who are listening and wondering what 302 South Walnut keeps popping up. So that location has 6 sets of large windows that measure 8 foot by 12 foot, running 3 sides of the building, as well as the entry and exit doors are glass. It's desired to obscure view from the street for the voters that are inside the building during elections, as well as cutting down any heat and glare created from all the sun coming in those large windows. So it was determined, we looked at many blinds and things of that nature, and it was determined that window tint, reflective window tint was the most cost-effective solution. So this is for Van Horn Window and Tint, who is a local company, to come in and take care of that for us.
Excellent. Comments, questions, Commissioner Githens?
Yeah, so many pieces to take care of with all of this. It's amazing. I do want to remind the public too that this is across from the bus terminal. Hopefully will make voting easier, and we think that there's very good parking in the area as well.
Yes, absolutely. Great parking in the area, really, and which will be a big help. Again, I know that there are many pieces that have to fit together all at once, and appreciate that all the effort that's going in to making this happen. I know this has been a really pretty big project, and the timeline is very, very short, as you know. I was just going to ask a quick question. So once this tint is in, people inside the building can see outside, but people outside can't see inside. Is that correct?
Correct. It's similar to the same product you see installed on car windows, except this actually has a reflective. You'll see it on a lot of businesses where it has a semi-transparent mirrored effect. So it doesn't obscure all view from the inside out, and it doesn't 100% eliminate to the inside, because we do want some light to transfer in. So, but that's what you're looking at if you want to compare it to window car tint.
Great, and that provides great security for voters at the Franklin booths who are marking ballots. Excellent. Great, thank you so much. Let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Please raise your hand on the Zoom screen. Okay, seeing none. Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on the Van Horn Tint and Accessories Agreement for 302 South Walnut Street?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes,
Motion is approved 2-0.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Thanks so much again for working on this. Next item, please.
move approval of the Indiana Family Health Council Title 10 Grant Amendment on name futures, in parentheses, Title 10, fund number 8126 in the amount of $1,850.
I will second that. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Cottle, will you tell us all about this, please?
Sure, this is a last minute additional that we received. Earlier this fall, we had an opportunity to apply for some additional Title 10 funds, and we put in for some funds to enhance and build a more robust telehealth option for our clinic. And the Indiana Family Health Council collected all of our needs and wants and submitted as the larger group. And so this was awarded. And so this is a small amount of money. It doesn't take a whole lot. There'll be some training, a little bit of some supplies, and perhaps a laptop to help us with that telehealth portion so that we can communicate, essentially, you think about via Zoom, sort of. And our nurse practitioner and nurses will be able to communicate and help people without them having to always come into the clinic. And certainly COVID-19 has taught us that that is a very, very useful tool, and something that we want to be able to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. Comments, questions, Commissioner Githens?
One of the things I really appreciate about the telehealth is that when people aren't coming into a facility, there's less opportunity to spread disease. It's just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, telehealth is wonderful. Really a great thing. And it's nice that the Indiana Family Health Council recognizes its value. That's really a great thing. So thanks for going after this grant. Let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Please raise your hand on the Zoom screen. All right, seeing none, Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on the Indiana Family Health Council Title 10 grant amendment?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved, 2-0.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, next item, please.
Move approval of the 2022 Election Day proposed polling sites.
I will second that, and we have Ms. Martin here. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, so this is our list of the 29 election day polls that we would like to use in 2022 election. If we choose them for the primary, we will also use them for the general. We have fewer polls this time because we're trying to build back up. We did lose some smaller poll sites like Bloomington City Utilities, the Ellisville Fire Station, and Bloomington Public Transportation. We moved those due to the pandemic in the 2020 election. They were lovely sites, but we had to move on. Not Tri-North, but Bloomington High School North has asked to be a polling site. So we have increased to that one. And right now that's what we have. Hopefully, as we get through this pandemic, we will grow even more polling sites. But as of today, we're using 29.
Great, thank you so much. I don't know if TSD can put that list up on the screen for us. Is there a list that includes the precincts as well? 'Cause
I
that's
can
typically how
provide
we
you.
receive it.
Well, the problem, not the problem, but we are moving some precincts to another polling site due to it's kind of silly to pass a polling site to go to a polling site. So we're going to be doing some moving of those. Can I get you those next week?
Sure, that'd be
Okay.
great.
I
Great,
appreciate
that'd
it.
be good. Thank you. Commissioner Githens, comments, questions?
Well, one of the names of the polling sites had changed, and when I said something to Miss Wheeler about it, she right on it, corrected it right away. I couldn't remember the name, and she took care of it. So kudos to Miss Wheeler again.
It was a church that had
Right.
changed its name, Christ Community Church.
Mhm. Yeah. Great. All right, and so all of these polling sites have been checked for technology access, for ADA compliance, all of
Yes.
that, right?
That's the
And
reason
then-
why, I'm sorry, but that's the reason why we no longer use Genesis. We cannot bring it up to standards. And Randy Powell was a pioneer, wasn't he?
He was.
And he did not like Genesis, so we did not use it. So it is not on this list.
It's good. Yeah, his work lives on. And as you noted, I think it's worth noting again, and I'm glad you said this at the outset, where the primary election polling sites will be the same as the general.
That is
election polling
correct.
sites. So
That is correct.
Once folks know where to go, they will be able to go. Is there going to be a postcard campaign? Do you know? Plan?
Well, actually, oh, there they are. There's the polling sites.
Thank you so much. Great.
We do not have to send postcards when we move, precincts or poll sites, but we do.
Mhm.
Monroe County they go over the top and letting people know what's going on. It is a curse and a blessing. So we pump the information out and hopefully that it will hit someone. There will be postcards going out.
Great.
And that's the long and short. There will be postcards.
Excellent, excellent. And we'll be sure to get this on the website, social media, and everything else before the election in May as well. So folks will have a number of options to find the information, and I'm sure it'll be published as well once the
Yes.
precincts are attached to this list. Great. Let's see if there is, and thank you again, TSD, for putting that up. Let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Just raise your hand on the Zoom screen. Okay, seeing none, Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on the approval of the 2022 Election Day proposed polling sites?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved, 2-0.
Thank you.
So much, Ms. Martin. Appreciate you. All right, next item, please.
Move approval of the Bluestone LLC retainer agreement for the tree removal and for tree remediation and removal. Fund names, County General and Parks Non-Reverting. Fund numbers 1,000 and 1179 in an amount not to exceed $20,000.
I will second that with the motion in a second. Ms. Whitmer, tell us all about it, please.
Well, excellent. We're suggesting that the commissioners approve a, excuse me, a retainer agreement for tree remediation and removal in not to exceed $20,000. But why we're doing this is because we want to make sure we have a company on call that has large enough equipment and staff who can safely and quickly perform these duties in case our park staff is not able to.
Great. Thank you so much. Comments, questions, Commissioner Githens?
No, I was at the Parks Board meeting last week, so I heard about this last week. And one of the things that I really appreciated was the fact that this company has the equipment to get in there quickly. And they know our park system. They work well with our park employees. And they've been very, very responsive in the past.
Correct.
Yeah, I know they've done work for us in the past. I'm wondering, just looking at this, something just crossed my mind, and I wonder if you would be able to address it. And if you can't, that's okay. It's just sort of a shot in the dark question here. Is there a policy for replacing trees as much as there is for remediation and removal? Is there a one-to-one, or is it depend on where it's at? Because some places you don't want to add more trees because it could be more danger in the future. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, we don't have a policy like one-to-one or anything like that, but we've been spending the last couple of years $10,000 on trees, and then we put them where we think they are most needed in each park.
Excellent. Great. It's always good to talk about the positives when you have to talk about the negatives. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for that information. That's appreciated. Let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Let's raise your hand in the Zoom screen, please. Seeing none, Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on the retainer agreement with Bluestone LLC for tree remediation and removal?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved, 2-0.
Great. Next item, please.
Move approval of Graber Post Buildings, Inc. for Karst Farm Park Commons Building. Fund name, Parks Non-Reverting. Fund numbers 1179 and 1178 in an amount not to exceed $28,453.
I will second that. Would you tell us all about it, Ms. Whitmer, please?
Yes, our Commons building at Karst Farm Park, we have wood siding that is over 30 years old and critters are living in it. So we believe the best way to spend money is to put metal on top of this and we've already replaced the roof and the gutter. So this is just something that you have to do to keep the building going, and hopefully this will help us for a few decades.
That sounds great. Comments, questions, Commissioner Githens?
Well, again, I heard about this last week, and I think one of the things that really struck me was that it's the door frames that are also having a lot of problems.
And part of this is to replace 2 doors. We have one falling off the hinges.
Yeah, that's great. Appreciate that you're keeping everything up to date and renovated as needed. Let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Just raise your hand in the Zoom screen, please. Okay, seeing none, Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on the agreement with Graber Post Buildings for Karst Farm Park Commons Building?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved 2-0.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next item, please.
Move approval of F&E Payment Pros Agreement for 2022 tax statements. Fund name, County General, Fund number 1,000 in the amount of $3,565.
I will second that, and we have our treasurer, Ms. McClellan, here to tell us all about it. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. This agreement is with F&E Payment Pros. It is for a slight increase in the annual maintenance agreement for a scanner that we have in our office. The scanner is the hardware, and it gets visited by a maintenance tech twice a year. There's also software from F&E Payment Pros on a computer that has the imaging software and the data tracking software that we use to load all of the scanned coupons and tax payments into our receipt system and to the bank. And so there's an annual fee for the software and for the maintenance of the hardware. And that is what this contract is for.
Thank you so much. Comments, questions, Commissioner Githens?
No, and I read through it. It seemed pretty straightforward.
Yeah, makes a great deal of sense. Do you want to talk about May? And give
Sure,
our-
yes.
Give the public some heads up here.
May tax statements will go, our target mail date is April 1st. So they'll go out as close to that date as we can. And we're open to the public. We're open for tax payments. Open every day, 8 to 4. But on the back of the tax bill, there's going to be a lot of information about ways to pay. And there's going to be a lot of information about how to pay online and how to pay by phone, which are really popular options. There's going to be information about how to mail your check in, which is always popular. And then there's also the drop box, which is a locked container outside of the north doors of the courthouse on the old historic courthouse on the square. All of that information is going to be on the back of your tax bill. So take a look at that and call us. Our phone number will be on there and our email will be on there. So if you have questions, you don't need to come in. It's much quicker to call or email us and we can get your question answered.
Excellent. Thank you so much. What a great service to have a number of options to pay safely in this time of COVID. Appreciate that. Let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Just raise your hand on the Zoom screen. Okay. Seeing none, Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on the agreement with F&E Payment Pros for 2022 tax statements?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved 2-0.
Great. Thank you so much. Next item, please.
Move approval of ratification of L&D Mail Masters Agreement for the 2022 tax statements. Fund name, County General, Fund number 1,000 in an amount not to exceed $38,000.
I will second that. Please tell us all about this, Ms. McClellan.
Yes, this is the contract for the printer who prints all of our tax bills. They print we send them all the data, they print the bills, they stuff them in envelopes. If there's multiple bills going to the same address, they'll put as many as 6 bills in an envelope. They have, and they mail them off for us. We get a discounted postage rate based on because we have so much, it's a bulk rate. And also there's things like they process all the zip codes together. So there's all kinds of mail processing standards that they meet to get a discounted rate. They're a great company. They're in Indiana and we've worked with them for a number of years. And that's who prints our Indiana Monroe County tax bills.
Great. Thank you so much. Comments, questions, Commissioner Githens?
Yeah, I didn't realize before that we actually get a break on the postage by doing it this way.
Yeah, it's a good deal. All right, let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Just raise your hand on the Zoom screen, please. I don't see any hands. So Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on the ratification of the L&D Mail Masters Agreement for the 2022 tax statements?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved 2-0.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, please.
Move approval of Sidwell agreement for GIS parcel fabric integration project. Fund name, auditors ineligible deductions, fund number 1216, in an amount of $89,100.
I will second that. And let's see, it looks like we have 3 folks joining us today. I can't quite tell who's who with the mask, so please tell us who's here. Thank you.
Commissioner Susie Johnson from the Auditor's Office, along with Jared Eichmiller, County GIS Coordinator, and Tron Enright Randolph from County Surveyor.
Great. Thank you so much, all 3 of you, for being here. Who wants to tell us all about this one?
So the Auditor's Office would like to request your approval of a contract with Sidwell to upgrade and improve the county GIS. We have contacted the TSD department. We have our server set up. There is a representative from Sidwell available too to answer your questions. And I will let Jared do deep dive explanation.
Yeah, hi. So as Susie said, we've been doing a lot of work the past several months to get our system into a state where we're ready to move into some more modern structure to our parcel layer. And one of our larger goals for this is to start aligning our layers together, such as aligning our parcels to our subdivision layers, these things that make sense, that should stick together over time, and to start implementing some topology rules that will start to prevent further issues in the future. This contract is it's built into include having Sidwell clean up the tens of thousands of topology errors found within our parcel layer, and to just start really bringing our parcel layer into this decade. So that's why we brought this contract forth, and we want just one other piece of this is it'll allow us to start including or keeping track of parent-to-child relationships of parcels. So whenever parcels are split, we're able to kind of keep that lineage and that historical record as well. So those are some of the more technical pieces that I wanted to make sure to add, and definitely can answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. Commissioner Githens, comments, questions?
No, I look forward to seeing it implemented.
Is this something that's going to correct the issue we see in planning when we look at parcel lines that aren't quite where they're supposed to be on the map? Is this going to address that issue?
It allows the foundation for us to start incrementally improving that. So another thing about the fabric is it creates controls. And so as we start getting more survey grade information on our second corners, we can start integrating those controls. But that's still a large project. So there's going to be some areas that we have more controls and we can kind of start moving in that direction. But ultimately, this is just going to be a snapshot of the existing, getting rid of the topologies and allow us to integrate those controls and then start adjusting, as we move forward.
Excellent. So there's a process involved clearly, and that does take a great deal of time. There are a lot of parcels out there. So good. Thank you so much for answering that question. Let's see if there's any public comment on this item. I do not see any, so I do want to thank again Ms. Johnson, Mr. Eichmiller, and our surveyor, Mr. Enright Randolph, for joining us today and telling us all about this. Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on the Sidwell agreement for GIS parcel fabric integration project.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved 2-0.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thanks. All right, next item, please.
Move approval of Terry Quillman Consulting Services for Highway Stormwater, Fund Name Stormwater, Fund Number 1197, in an amount of $100 per hour, but only as needed.
I will second that, and we have Ms. Ridge joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. So we had an agreement last year when Terry retired from the county. We utilized him for some of the bigger projects that go through our plan commission. Our MS4 coordinator has reached out to him on some different projects for his expertise. We spent approximately $2,900 last year for his services, so it's pretty minimal. And we would like to continue that relationship and agreement with Mr. Quillman. The Stormwater Board approved this on February 9th at their public meeting.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Comments, questions, Commissioner Githens?
No, we've seen it before, so I appreciate the fact that Mr. Quillman's willing, though, to continue to work with us and for us.
Yeah,
We are too.
yeah, he's got a great deal of experience in Monroe County and elsewhere, and that's really valuable to have at our disposal if we need it. So I'm glad that he's willing to do this as well. Let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Raise your hand in the Zoom screen, please, if you do. Okay, seeing none, Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on the Terry Quillman Consulting Services Agreement for Highway Stormwater?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved 2-0.
Thank you. All right, next item, please.
Move approval of resolution 2022-09, approving service agreements.
I will second that. Would you tell us all about it, Mr. Cockrell?
Yes, the first thing I will note is that in the clerks, there is a Pitney Bowes with the amount of, it should be $2,706.60. There's a period instead of a comma in that. So, but this is essentially, we've got some claims from the clerk and some contracts from the clerk for services, as well as 4 from the Redevelopment Commission. Tree Martin is on the call and she could probably explain the clerk stuff a little better than I could. But the 4 for the Redevelopment Commission is for our annual reports that we are required to get submitted to the council and to the gateway in April. So we really like to get those moving and get those approved today. And if you have any questions about the clerk stuff, a couple are for Pitney Bowes, 2 are for Midwest Presort, which is the mailing application, and then some software and shredding agreements.
Great, thank you so much. Comments, questions, Commissioner Githens?
No, I'm glad that, I hope that on the minutes that the typo can be rectified.
Yeah. All right, yeah, I don't have any questions either. All of the information was helpful that's in the packet, so appreciate that. Let's see if there's any public comment on this item. Just raise your hand on the Zoom screen. Seeing none, Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on resolution 2022-09?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved 2-0.
Excellent, thank you so much. Commissioner Githens, would you be willing to have a 5-minute break at this point? Would that be all right with you?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. We're going to take a quick recess and we will be back at 11:05. Thank you so much. We are recessed.
Sorry, I was here. I forgot to sign in.
There you are. All right. I'm going to bring this meeting back out of recess, call it back to order. And we are on item N, please.
Move approval of ordinance 2022-02, amend zoning ordinance chapter 814, permits and certificates.
I will second that. And we have Ms. Nestor Jelen here from the Planning Department to tell us all about it. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you see my screen okay with the ordinance update? Okay, great. So this is ordinance 2022-2. It is an amendment to chapter 814 permits and certificates. So I just would like to first summarize what the purpose of this amendment is and then go through the specific changes that we're proposing. So the purpose of this amendment is to amend the criteria under the improvement location permits to require a permit prior to changing the use of any building, structure, or lot. This amendment will allow us to have clear understanding between the public and our office of when a permit is required. And we think it'll be helpful based on the way that our typical operations are in the office. In addition, the amendment adds clarity under the application for land use certificates. It amends it to say that we're now onto an online permitting software instead of providing physical copies. And then it also adds requirements at the administrator's discretion for some sites that are commercially used to have as-built or and also to provide survey stakes when we go out and do our last site visit to make sure that sensitive areas such as karst features or stormwater facilities are appropriately staked so that we can make sure that they are following all protective measures and that they appear to be similar in size to what the construction plans call for. And then lastly, we're amending the ordinance to have what's called a conditional land use certificate, which will allow someone to obtain occupancy of new construction of a building if the only improvement remaining is landscaping. This conditional land use certificate can be amended to be adding more time, but the reason for it is just to accommodate the seasonality for landscaping in southern Indiana. So I'd like to just go through quickly some of these changes. So under 814-1 is the requirements for when someone requires an improvement location permit. Typically, people don't see improvement location permits. They're tied to building permits. And so when someone applies for a building permit, our planning jurisdiction, if it is in the county, does a review. And if it is meeting all requirements, they get issued an improvement location permit, and then that is followed by a building permit. So if someone is making a change in use to any portion of the building structure or lot, they will now be required to get an improvement location permit. So that could be changing the building from residential to commercial, would require a permit. And then we're just clarifying to make sure it's consistent throughout the ordinance that it's change in use. The next changes, as I mentioned, were under the application for land use certificate, stating that it needs to be done online. And then also, as I mentioned, at the administrator's discretion, we can require as-built and survey stakes to ensure compliance with the construction plans. And then we are also asking that we have closer to 10 days since with the new permitting software, when someone's applying for the final land use certificate, which is saying that this is in full compliance with what they said they would do under the construction plans, under the permit. The stormwater division, highway department, planning, building, we all have to have time to review the site and make sure that we can all sign off. So 10 days we feel is appropriate for being able to get that done for someone that has a complete application and they're actually at the point in which they can require a land use certificate. And then also, as I mentioned, the 6-month extension to give a conditional land use certificate, that would allow the building department to give a certificate of occupancy. And then it would trigger us to go out in 6 months and make sure that landscaping is installed by that point. If they do need an additional amount of time, they can apply for one last 6-month period at the administrator's discretion in good faith that they've tried to acquire appropriate landscaping or put it in. we want to make sure that they are able to get the landscaping in and that it is installed and maintained in perpetuity. So if any landscaping dies, they actually are required to put that back in place. So in order to just do it once and to do it correctly, we understand that there may need to be a little bit of time granted to do that. So that is the summary of the 814 amendments, and I can take any questions that you might have.
Would help if I unmute. Thank you so much, Ms. Nestor-Jalin. We appreciate you. Comments, questions, Commissioner Gibbons?
Two quick things. Would you please explain to the public what it means for something that's as built? And also, is the 10-day approval 10 calendar days or 10 work days?
Two good questions. So I'll start with the as-built question. So if something is requiring an as-built, that means that a surveyor goes out to the site and stakes the building as it was constructed, as opposed to the proposed location of the construction. And then we can overlay those two and make sure that the as-built matches the proposed construction. And then the 10 days under the ordinance, it's actually calendar days. So it is typically, I think there is in chapter 800, I believe we can exclude maybe holidays, but I believe that it is calendar days.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's see, and I don't have any questions. I've seen this many times, and we've talked it through in a number of different committees and plan commission. Let's see if there's any questions or comments from the public. Just raise your hand on the Zoom screen. And seeing none, Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on ordinance 2022-02?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved 2-0.
So much. All right. Next item, please.
Move approval of ordinance 2022-03, amend zoning ordinance chapter 802, zones and permitted use.
I will second that. Ms. Nestor-Jalin, will you please tell us all about this?
Sure. So this is another text amendment. This is to a different ordinance chapter 802. The purpose of this amendment is to add a new use called scrap metal processing facility. And this use would only be permitted in the heavy industrial zone under our zoning map. This amendment includes a definition that is aligned with the Indiana state statute and also places standards for the permitted use, which includes the following. The facility is accessed and served by a road infrastructure sufficient to safely transport scrap metal by truck bed, trailer, or semi-trailer, and is sufficiently buffered by natural objects, plantings, fences, or other appropriate means, so it is substantially screened from main traveled way of the system. The outdoor storage area shall be limited to 100,000 square feet or less and be located in an area that complies with the buildable area provision in chapter 804-4E. The need for this text amendment is due to the fact that scrap metal recycling is not considered solid waste by the Indiana Department of Environmental Management or the Solid Waste District, and therefore there is a gap currently in our zoning ordinance. So if a business desires to change their use to scrap metal processing facility use, they would have to meet the current requirements of the ordinance proposed in this text amendment and also apply for a commercial site plan, which gets reviewed by our stormwater division, highway, planning, health departments, and other departments as applicable. The scrap metal processing facility does align with the Indiana state statute. However, in speaking with our legal department and also within our planning office and the plan commission, we did exclude a few uses that maybe we don't want to see as involved in this use. So those uses included automotive salvage recycler, automobile scrapyard, Hulk crusher, mobile home salvaging facility, vehicle disposal facility, as all defined by the Indiana code. Basically, this is just to avoid automotive storage, and a hull crusher is sort of like a machine that's crushing really heavy metal products. And then mobile home as well. So we just wanted to see a reduced number of scrap materials that may have harmful oils or things like that sitting at the site. So this will only be for iron, steel, or non-ferrous metal, and it is for remelting purposes only. So the purpose is not to put it back into the waste stream, but to actually remelt or reuse some of the scrap metal that's being purchased by the individual facility. So it is proposed to be under the manufacturing, mining, construction, and industrial use under our zoning ordinance, chapter 802. It is considered, we're considering it a heavy or high intensity use under the heavy industrial district, and adding the condition 58. So as a permitted use with the condition 58, they would need to meet this condition, and then also apply for the commercial site plan for review by all county departments, as I mentioned. So making sure that it's sufficiently buffered, outdoor storage area limited to 100,000 square feet, infrastructure needs to be built so that it is sufficient. And then lastly, I will say that the Plan Commission did send a positive recommendation of 7-0 for this text amendment. And I believe that is it. So I can take any questions that you have.
Thank you so much. Comments, questions, Commissioner Githens?
Yeah, I apologize that I didn't think of this earlier, but does this allow for this facility to melt down refrigerators and freezers, things that might have Freon in them? And if so, could we consider maybe putting that in as one of the items that are excluded from what can be processed there?
This list does not exclude appliances, so that would be something that if you would like to see added to the definition, we would be able to do so, and then it would go back to the Plan Commission. I could see under the Indiana code if there is sort of an umbrella definition that might cover appliance exclusion, but if not, we might just have to rework it a little bit if that is what you would prefer to do.
I don't have a good mental picture, I guess, of how this will all occur. Is it all going to occur on a concrete pad where, any spills can be contained? Or is it, if not, then I'm concerned about some of the chemicals going into the soil, the aquifer, things like that. That's the reason I bring it up.
Yes, so the outdoor storage area is limited in size, but we did not preface it that it would have to be on concrete or asphalt. So that is something that, again, it's a good suggestion. If you'd like to see that be added to this, we could add it. I think the process is the commissioners can add amendments, and I could pass that by legal, send it to you all for your review, and then it goes back to the Plan Commission. And if the Plan Commission agrees, I believe at that point it becomes effective. So those are two good suggestions.
Did you have anything else, Commissioner Githens?
No, and I apologize again that those things didn't occur to me earlier to bring to you.
Yeah. I missed the very beginning of this Plan Commission meeting where this was voted on, and I would have been a no vote. And here's why. This is a general change to our ordinance that would impact anybody who wants to do this kind of work in heavy industrial. And I recognize that. However, this amendment is being offered as a result of a specific petitioner wanting to provide this service. And I find it really, it's just not limited enough for my taste. I am concerned because we have had a events in county's history where fluids, oils, PCBs have leached into our groundwater and into our environment. And I don't want this to happen again. One of the things that I know this particular petitioner has been involved in is, I believe that they also process ordinance from Crane. And I would want some very specific things here about containment of fluids or exclusion, as Commissioner Githens pointed out, an actual exclusion for anything containing Freon or any motor vehicles or anything with a battery. I mean, it really would be pretty exclusionary for me to be comfortable with this. It is obvious that I would say, no ordinance should be processed. I also am concerned because, and again, this is a general ordinance change request, and it's not about a particular petitioner, and it's not about a particular location, but the fact that this proposal is on a site that would need to be rezoned, and that is another day and another issue. I have concerns because I believe near or on that site is a wetland feature. And so I think I would want to add some additional language in here about not being on a parcel with open waterways, wetlands. They would have to have appropriate containment for what they're doing. And a question I have that came up for me as I was rereading this again and looking back at the Plan Commission packets is whether they can actually, when the word processing is used, if they can actually perform the melting or the smelting, as it were, or if it is just simply a collection site. And I think we need to be really clear about that, because those are two very different things. And again, you have the potential for noxious fumes and other things that people don't want to be around. And clearly heavy industrial would normally be in an area where there wouldn't be residential environments nearby. However, if it does include the actual processing, not just the crushing or whatever, but if it's actual processing of any of this, I would want to require that it be located a sufficient distance away from residents. So there's a lot here, and a lot of concerns that we've expressed, and I think to keep this going, I would recommend that we continue this item for a couple of weeks, if that's okay. And that would bring us to March 9th meeting, if that sounds doable, or we can go to the 16th, if that's better for you, Ms. Nestor-Jelen, to give you time to work with legal on this.
Okay, I think let's go ahead and do March 9th for now, and I will see if by that March 4th date, if I'm not able to get something that matches all of the comments that I've received today, then I'll push it back an additional week.
Okay, that would be great. And you don't have to bring it to the work session since we've already heard it. You can just bring it here when it's ready.
Okay.
So let's first see if there's any public comment on this item at all before we make a motion here. Looks like we do have 1, 2. So first we have Mark Cranley. Can you verify that's your name and let us know whether or not you're a Monroe County resident?
Yes, ma'am. That is my name, Mark Cranley. I'm actually the attorney for Republic Services, which is right next door to the site. And we oppose the site. We have opposed it at the Plan Commission. I'm not going to make all the points we have regarding this project because we're specifically talking about the change in the use. There is a wetland feature on this surface. It is upgrading from bodies of water. It's near the wastewater, the water treatment facility. It's less than 1,700 feet from residential housing. There's several very significant problems. But what I really want to address is the proposal that this is not solid waste that's being brought in. It absolutely is. Under the definition of solid waste under Indiana's IDEMS regulations and Indiana statutes that define solid waste. Solid waste is essentially anything that's being brought onto a site that's garbage or waste material or discarded material. So they're proposing to have people come in and bring appliances, anything that has metal in it, drop it off. And they're trying to get around the definition, saying, well, you know, we're going to pay for this stuff. But you can use your imagination to think about the things people are going to want to dump here that have absolutely no value. It was described in the Planning Commission meetings as a transfer station that would operate like a waste transfer station. Now, that's obviously a lot different than what's been presented to you. Something that's of great concern to anyone living in this area. They've also indicated that they want the heavy industrial characterization, and they may or may not actually do that. They may actually put a manufacturing. I want to make sure the commissioners are also aware that my client has a contract with the Solid Waste District in Monroe County, that this would trigger a violation of, potential termination of. That contract is very favorable to the county, very favorable to the district. In fact, helps fund the district. So by trying to put this, what they describe themselves as a transfer station, they're putting the district contract at risk. And we don't think that's something that's in the county's interest. It's not in our interest, simply spot zoning to satisfy this one particular. And with that, I'll leave. Thank you very much. I appreciate your work.
Thank you, Mark Cranley, for your comments. Next, we have Tom McGlasson, Director of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District. And just verify that that is you, Mr. McGlasson.
That is me. I appreciate the time this morning, and I guess I'm not going to try to respond to some of the previous commenters, comments. That's not what the agenda item today is about. But I did want to make some comments. I first apologize that I was not in attendance at last week's Plan Commission meeting, where I think there was some terminology and language used that created some confusion. When there was reference made, or term transfer station was used to reference the pending facility that created some of this confusion. And I'm glad to see this agenda item in an attempt to add a separate distinction for a scrap metal processor. I mean, that is what this facility is. The state defines it separately from a solid waste facility in IC 1311-2. And along those lines, was to try maybe offer some clarification to some questions, comments raised earlier. The state definition of a scrap metal processor doesn't necessarily prohibit melting and smelting on site, but it does specifically state that the term does not include a steel mill. And it also defines a processor as an entity whose principal product is scrap iron, scrap steel, or non-ferrous scrap for sale for remelting purposes. So again, doesn't necessarily prohibit them from doing that by the definition. And then also with regard to, I think the specific question was Freon containing appliances. In the state statute, also in IC 1311-2, there's a definition for white goods that includes most large appliances that are discarded. And so that would include Freon appliances as well as some others. But you can look that up, and that may help you do get some of the information and research necessary to make the clarifications that were being asked about or looked for earlier. So, but that's really all I wanted to comment on today for the agenda item specific today. I'm not interested in discussing the proposed facility at this time. We'll wait till that's on the agenda. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McGlasson, and I appreciate the information you provided, and I know that our planning staff can reach out to you if they have questions, and same thing with our legal staff. I just have so many concerns about this proposal because we don't have a lot of heavy industrial properties, parcels in the county. And, you know, I took a look at that zoning map and thought, is it appropriate here? Is it appropriate here? What can happen? And those were my biggest concerns. And I think we've both shared some concerns that we have. And I'm going to make a motion that we continue this item until at least our March 9th, 2022 meeting.
Second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment on that motion? Okay. Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the
Oh,
roll?
wait, there's.
Oh. Okay, Mr. Enright Randolph.
I just want to say, sitting on the Plan Commission, that I'm very happy that you're digging into this and really being very subjective to this proposed text amendment. I felt a little concerning with the fact that we're adding an additional use and then having a petition right behind it. So I'm very happy that you're really looking at this. One reason I was able to support the amendment was due to the fact that it made it to your desk, and every discussion item I heard, you know, if this comes back to the Plan Commission, I'd be willing to support what I've already heard as far as your discussion today. So I just really wanted to make sure that you're aware of the difficulty of this moving through the Plan Commission. And I see that you're really looking at this, and thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Enright Randolph. Appreciate that. All right, let's see if there's anyone else. Thank you for catching that, Commissioner Githens. I have the screen open and it's small to see raised hands. All right, I don't see any others. Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on continuing ordinance 2022-03 till March 9th?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion to continue is approved 2-0.
Right. Thank you so much, Ms. Nestor-Jelen. Sorry to throw more things at you, but that's the name of the game.
No, I appreciate that. And Tom, if you're still on, I'll be reaching out to you. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate your patience. All right. And we have an appointment.
Yes, I move to appoint Susan Snyder Salmon to the Historic Preservation Board of Review.
I will second that. Again, we always appreciate folks who are willing to serve. Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on this appointment?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved 2-0.
Great, thank you so much. Just have a few announcements. Just a reminder, the Township Assistance Fund is available for county residents who are struggling to meet their basic needs due to the pandemic. And there's $200,000 that have gone through that fund. And if you need assistance with your basic necessities, please contact your township trustee. Every county resident who lives in a township, and that's whether you live in the city, a town, or neither. So you can go to 211.org, in211.org, or call 211 for information on contacting your township trustee. It also appears in the minutes of our meeting each week, and we thank Ms. Freeman for that. We are accepting applications for boards and commissions as we continue to do so. If you're interested, go to co.monroe.in.us. I will note that there are 2 Red Cross blood drives, Tuesday, March 29th, Wednesday, March 30th. The Tuesday event is from 10 to 3, and the Wednesday event is 1 to 6. Both of those are at Ivy Tech. Go to redcross.org to make an appointment, please. Also, the Board of Commissioners is proud and happy to provide office hours for the community to connect with us. It's been a really great service so far, and if you are a member of our community and you have comments or questions or need assistance with something, office hours are a great way to do that. Right now, it's via Zoom only. But you can look at our calendar at co.monroe.in.us. You will find daytime and evening appointments throughout the month, and it's your opportunity to chat with us one-on-one, and we look forward to chatting with you. So please come on to that Zoom link to join the office hours, and you will be put in a waiting room for a short time. We have some old magazines there, and we will bring you on. We will bring you on as soon as the previous person has left the Zoom meeting. So it's one at a time service. All right, and we do want to thank Technical Services Department for all their hard work. We know that there's a lot going on between preparing for the 302 South Walnut building and also getting us ready to go back to hybrid meetings, to start hybrid meetings where the public can join via Zoom or in person. And I think this is a great option for folks to protect their health and protect others, but it allows us to continue with our transparent government operations. So Commissioner Githens, do you have anything else that you would like to add?
I think next week we're still all virtual, but if the governor lifts the emergency order, then we will go to the hybrid meetings. And there was an article on the front page of today's local HT about the cost of energy. And in that article, it also explains to people how they can reach out to their township trustees for assistance. So
absolutely, yes. Winter heating bills, we've had some really cold snaps. And so yes, absolutely. If you need assistance, your township trustee is your best help out there. And it's more than our township assistance fund. They have all kinds of other assistance available, and they are going to be there, and their staff is great to help you out and to get you through this winter. Great.
And the township trustees are really your neighbors as well.
They are. True. Yeah, that's very true. Their staff and they know everybody and everybody knows them. And but some folks still don't know they have a township trustee. But that's the role of the township trustee. It's vital. Their work is vital. We appreciate them. All right. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. So let's come back at 10 minutes to noon for our work session, 11:50, 1150. Would that work for you, Commissioner Gibbons? Yes. Excellent. Great. And with that, we are going to be adjourned until our work session at 11:50. Thanks, everyone. Get vaccinated. Okay, I'm going to call to order this work session for February 23rd, 2022. Looks like we have one item regarding an easement agreement. And we have Ms. Nestrogel here to tell us all about it.
Hi, Commissioners. Thanks for
Hello
having me again. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for a second. Okay, so, and I will note that David Schilling with the legal department is here as well as an attendee if you have any questions. But basically, this is an easement agreement for your review that is between the Bloomington Country Club, Hayden Flats, as well as the Board of Commissioners for work conducted along South Rogers Street. So in the packet of the work session today are 2 easements that are being provided to the county commissioners that have been reviewed by the Highway Department, Stormwater as well, and then legal and planning. So the review is of the easements and signature for work to be completed along South Rogers Street near West Sutar Drive, which is just south of West Country Club Drive. So there's 2 easement agreements in this packet. You'll see a temporary easement and then a permanent right-of-way easement agreement. Basically, the purpose of these 2 easements is so that a private developer who has sought a site plan approval for a development along South Rogers Street has been required by the Highway Department to complete a turning lane and passing blister. And the county does not have adequate right-of-way in the area in which they needed to do this improvement. So they sought out an easement from the country club to first do the work at their own expense, which is the temporary easement. And then once that work is completed and inspected by the county, we will obtain and switch over to a permanent right-of-way easement, which allows the public the ability to use the passing lane and also for the county to have the ability to do maintenance of the drainage feature, which will include but not limited to a culvert underneath Sutar. And then the turning lane, like I said, will be located within the easement. So I will go over the easements in the packet for you. And then I will also go over, they have a portion or snippet of the construction plans, which I think really helps clarify what we're talking about and where we're talking about. So this easement agreement is including 3 parties, as I mentioned. So in the temporary easement agreement, basically, my understanding is the purpose of the commissioners to be involved in this easement agreement is so that we're giving basically a permit for the right-of-way work to happen in this location. It would not come at the expense of the county or taxpayers. The work would be completed by GLC Hayden Flats LLC and then inspected by us. And if there are changes or things that need to be brought up to the construction plans that were approved by the Highway Department, those would occur prior to the county taking on the permanent easement agreement. So the easement agreement includes drainage work as well as utility work. So that will involve grading of the side slopes of the pavement expansion, the turn lane, as well as the culvert that will go under West Sutar to make sure that all of the drainage is appropriately repaired following this construction. And then, as I mentioned, after the temporary easement, which is for a period of 2 years or until they are able to complete the work to our satisfaction, there is a permanent easement which follows this one. And this is the easement area here. So Sutar here, Country Club is up at the top. This is the Bloomington Country Club property. And the easement is approximately 35 feet wide by 324 feet long. And then I've also zoomed in on the easement location here. So just to get your bearings, this is the east side of South Rogers Street. And then this is the west side of South Rogers Street. And the easement area is hatched here. And so the work that would be completed, you can kind of see it in gray on this side is what we're discussing. And then further down, it's a little bit easier to see. So here's the turn lane that would be created to enter into the development. And then the area in yellow here is what we're discussing in terms of the easement. So the grades would be here, and then as well as the culvert underneath Sutar, and then the pavement expansion to allow for the public to be able to pass people that are going to be turning left into the development. And I'm going to go down to the permanent easement. So the permanent right-of-way easement is for after the temporary construction is completed, and that would be just between the country club and the Monroe County Board of Commissioners. So at that point, we would only enter into this agreement after the temporary agreement is completed to our satisfaction. And as I mentioned before, the purpose of this would be to allow the public to continue to use the non-exclusive right-of-way easement to be able to access through there through the turn lane, as well as the passing blister. And then it also identifies that as such, we will be taking on the any necessary maintenance of the drainage facilities or pavement maintenance that needs to occur in those areas in return for that passing blister improvement. And at this point, if you have any questions for me or the legal department, I would be happy to take those at this point.
Great, thank you so much. Commissioner Giffens, do you have any comments or questions? You are muted.
No, I think Mr. Jellin has done a good job of explaining some of this.
Yeah, I had a brief text conversation with Ms. Ridge about the potential for a sidewalk here, and that would be dealt with separately. I didn't know if that needed to be considered now, and she said no. So that was my only concern. But otherwise, this makes a lot of sense, and you've already had it reviewed. My question is for legal as to, is there a time constraint here? Should we go ahead and consider this for a vote today, or were you planning to bring this back next week? So I don't know if is there a pressing issue here, Ms. Nestor-Jellin?
Oh, it looks like Dave has his hand raised. If tech services can unmute him.
Excellent, thank you so much. That's all happening all at once. Great. Mr. Schilling.
Yes, in response to your question, I think that the developer would like to have this approved ASAP, but I don't believe that another week would make a difference if you need additional information.
Okay. Would we need to ratify this next week, or is this something we can just consider today and move on?
I believe you can consider it today.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that insight. I haven't had a lot of these, so always learn something new. Thank you. All right. Commissioner Giffens, would you be amenable to considering this today?
Yes, I think it increases safety in that area.
Yeah.
And it also allows for the utilities to be in there, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it really does. Would you be, let's see if I can get my screen open here so that I can.
If you go to the next page, I think it's got.
Yeah, I just lost my packet. So here, I got it again.
I think it's up on the screen.
Yep. That's too small for me. almost there. I got it open again. We're almost there. Oh my goodness. It's even though I've got my glasses on, it's pretty small. My screen's small. All right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the easement agreement between Bloomington Country Club, Hayden Flats, and the Board of County Commissioners for work conducted along South Rogers Street.
I'll second that.
All right, and this includes both a temporary easement agreement as outlined in our packet, and it also includes a permanent easement agreement as outlined in our packet. And with that, let's see if there are any members of the public who wish to comment on this item. Please raise your hand on the Zoom screen. I see Mr. Schilling's hand still raised, but I assume it's from before. That's okay. I can see if there's any, thank you. See if there's any public comment. All right, seeing none. Mr. Cockrell, will you please call the roll on the easement agreement between Bloomington Country Club, Hayden Flats, and the Board of County Commissioners for work on South Rogers Street?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Githens.
Yes.
Motion is approved 2-0.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thanks for sticking with us. All right. Any other departments wish to bring an item for our work session? Let us know. Raise your hand. I do not see any. So with that, thanks again, TSD, for all your hard work. And with that, unless Commissioner Githens has something, no, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Be well.